Hello, friends. Welcome to Sunday and an unusual time for a history news. In fact, we have been off piste a little bit, but we are here now. I am looking through the comments. I did see some coming in already. Let's do some hellos. Gert's Garden, hello, Lockport, New York. And of course, we have just had Thanksgiving over in the US. I hope if you celebrate that you have had a lovely time and that everybody's family has behaved themselves, or that your chosen family have behaved themselves, because holidays do bring out both the best and the worst in people, in my experience. We've got rather a long stretch. So we have over here, we have obviously fireworks night, November the 5th, which I have to remind people we are celebrating the plot failing, not the attempt. So we've got fireworks night, November the 5th, and then it's just a whole long stretch through to Christmas. So that is one of the reasons why the Christmas decorations do come out here very, very early, because we haven't got Thanksgiving in the way or something like that. Hello. Hi, Lizzie. I'm glad you're excited. We do have some cool news to chat about. Evening. Hello. Hello, Paige. Hi, Julia, and good morning indeed. And Julia, I did see, sorry, Rebecca, I saw your comment here, also from Australia. Two of you in. Hello. Don't know what time it is over there. Welcome. I have to make a confession. I went on holiday with my family. We went away. So we were away when the documentary aired. I was in the Canary Islands, and I didn't fly back until we didn't get until quite late on Thursday night. So I have just been spending Friday, Saturday, and today catching up on work, prepping all the rest of it. So I actually haven't seen the documentary, but trust and belief, I have seen the narratives and the discussions and the debates going on social media. And for the most part, I think it's really fascinating. And what a great thing that we are seeing this period of history really pulled into the forefront, that we are seeing across social media from people across the world taking an interest in this part of history in a climate where lots of politicians are devaluing history as a subject, are saying that it's not worth studying at a high level. I think this proves that there is a common interest in it, and I think that's fabulous. The flip side of that I'm seeing, and this is coming from somebody who hasn't read the book, listened to the podcast, or watched the documentary. I will be listening to it and watching it. The thing that I am also seeing that makes me sad is that some of the ways in which these discussions have been conducted, and by no means is everybody guilty of this, and by no means is it simply one side of the argument that is guilty of it, but I have seen some of the most uncollegiate, rude, ableist, offensive comments coming out of people. And I know social media can be a dumpster fire, but it's some of the stuff that I've seen has made me really cross and disappointed, because there is a way to have this discussion with respect and decency. And I believe the documentary sort of comes to a conclusion with a case closed stance, which I think is hyperbolic. I think when it comes to history at this far of a remove, there isn't a case closed situation that's going to be possible. I mean, in certain cases there are, but I think with this, unless we find the smoking pillow or otherwise, we aren't going to come to a case closed situation. But there are ways to have this discussion that don't require people to be just offensive. So I do want to talk about the new findings. I do want to discuss it, but I also feel that the dust needs to settle, because I want to give first of all, I need to see it and read everything. And I also want to give a reasoned and well thought out commentary. And currently I'm finding the noise and in some cases, the nonsense and the personal attacks, I'm finding that's hampering my capacity to respond in the way that I would want to, that I think is classy. Because currently my responses are classless. So I'm not going to share them because that's not who I want to be. And I hope that that's all right, and that you understand where I'm coming from. Let's see what we come in the comments. Hello, everybody. Lots of comments coming in. I know, I'm terrible, aren't I? And do you know what? This is the first time that my husband and I have been abroad together since 2016, which was our honeymoon. So this is hands up, slacking. What can I say? So this was little Gabriel's first time on a plane, which went better than expected. I'm going to be honest with you, because I was dreading it, but it actually went fine. Yes, we were on Tenerife, and there's an incredible resort that's super good for kids. And they've got sort of like a little castle, like a fairy tale castle in their pool area. And Gabriel had the time of his life. There was a mascot monkey, a person in a costume, and you would have thought all of his Christmases had come at once. I think we're going to go back. It may well require its own dedicated video. It may well, and I just want to, for a few things. Firstly, while it is a period of history that I've talked about, it is not my period of specialism. What I have been told both on the kind of social media and the kind of news that's come out of this, is that there is a claim that new documents have been discovered that sort of blows the case wide open. I've also seen people countering that and saying that some of these documents are not new discoveries. And this is not something that I know the answer to. And I don't want to come wading in, shooting from the hip, and essentially say something that I later come to regret, because I have my own opinions about what might have happened to the princes, which are based upon my understanding. But I think it just needs to calm down. What I will say is that we will be discussing, for those of you who do follow History After Dark, we will be sitting down with the wonderful Nathan Armin to talk about it in a couple of weeks. So that may be a space where I can, I suppose, accumulate my thoughts and possibly vent, and then take it out of the History After Dark and come to reading the past and do it in a way that I feel is appropriate and how I wish to present myself. So let's pause there on discussing the documentary. I hope if you watched it, you enjoyed it, and that it's given you food for thought. And if it's changed your mind, then that's incredibly powerful TV, isn't it? So, you may hear my son is being put to bed currently. Just on a side note, we have had a tragedy occur. My son has been clinging to dear life to the last of his pacifiers. Every other one has been lost or broken, and we have been clinging. This one only comes out at bedtime, and it burst tonight. So this is where we're going to be going. So my husband's currently dealing with that. It's our first passy-less bedtime. It couldn't have happened at a better time for me. Could not have happened at a worse time for my husband. It's his birthday tomorrow, so happy birthday to him. This is an early gift for him. We know that it's now time for him to not have one because of the whole dental stuff. I wish him all of the luck. He was very brave, bless him. He did, because he realized it had burst, and I said, it's not safe. you know, this is your last one. And he was very upset. And then he put it in the bin himself. So he was very brave. And so I gave him a present because bribery works, friends. So welcome. We're 10 minutes in and I've just waffled at you. Thank you for your patience. If you are watching live, this is what it can be like sometimes. If you are watching on the playback, thank you for sitting through those 10 minutes. We do have today some updates, repatriation / decolonization news. We've got some new news. We have got some ding dongs. We have also got some event and exhibition stuff to talk about. As always, the articles are linked in the opera pinboard that I have put in the description box. There's a link to that. You will also see that in the description box, there is a numbered list of links. Those links correspond with the articles that we are talking about. The numbers correspond with the numbers that you will see on the bottom of the slide on screen. So hopefully that makes the whole process much easier. We have been sent lots of articles, and as always, I do have people to thank. So I think I saw a couple come in today. Just to flag up, we are now hurtling towards December where has this year gone? It's been fairly horrifying speed. As we hurtle towards December, I've looked at my calendar and I think that with the way Christmas is falling, we're only going to have one history news in December. So then we will be storing up, and I may do it. I think it's going to be the first Monday of January will be the next history news. So we'll have one in there. Also, I'm thinking, as it is Christmas time, I am aware that people have been asking me for a bookshelf tour for a very long time. And I do have a plan because, friends, I erected this bookcase my very own self. Now, what I didn't do was anchor it to the wall. So what you can't see is that it is ever so slightly beginning to gape forward. And so I have to anchor it to the wall. So I thought that it might be fun to make a video of me trying to anchor it to the wall and then reorganizing the books back on the shelf, because obviously everything's going to blinking well come off. And the bookshelf starts here and it goes past there. There's a lot of books. And it's all the way up here, all the way down here. So it's going to take a while. And I thought that as I was doing that, I could film it and I could talk about some of the books and the orders that I'm putting them in, because I can't go through all of them. We'll be here all week. So I thought that could be fun. I also think it's been a while since I've done a Q&A. So I will be putting up a post on my community tab at some point asking for questions, and I will answer as many as I can. That's in addition to the other videos that I will be making. I'm currently working on a couple of scripts for things that I think will be pretty cool. But there will be two sort of out there videos. One will be a bookshelf rebuild, pray for me, and a restock of the books. And then also we will be doing a Q&A. So do keep your eyes out for me putting up that post there. I cannot tell you how glad I am I don't live in an earthquake-prone area too, because I build all of the flat pack and I am slapdash in so many ways. So yes, hopefully you'll have fun joining me as I talk about the books that I have. There may be some that surprise you as well. So there we go, and maybe even some perhaps last-minute Christmas gifts if it takes your fancy. Right, so let us hop in. We're going to be starting, of course, with our thanks. So thank you to Yvonne, to my name twin Kat, to Elverta, Jessie, Kathy, Felem, Karolyn, Amy, Joseph, Steve, Paige, Anna, and Sheri. Thank you ever so much for taking the time to send me links. And I'm seeing people talk about anchor the book. Yes, I'm going to be anchoring the bookcase to the wall so that it doesn't lean forward. I've bought the anchors. That's going to happen. It's going to work out. I've got a plan, and you can see if that plan works. I do have some Philip Gregory books because I think that historical fiction is in many ways, it's most people's gateway drug into history. And I have a lot of time for the people who take the historical facts as we know them, and sometimes as we don't know them, and then they are able to generate a world that feels real enough that you can walk through it. So I think that that's what I missed a joke. I don't understand the joke. So yeah, I read The Other Berlin Girl approximately 8 million times as a teenager. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. So let us hop in to the first of the updates. And we are with the British Museum. We have news. We're told that the British Museum, the chairman of the trustees, George Osborne, former politician, has hopes that he can reach an agreement with Greece that would see the Parthenon marbles temporarily returned in exchange for ancient artifacts that have never been seen in the UK. Um, an exchange. Apparently, Osborne said, "We may not succeed, but I think it's worth trying." This sounds like some kind of extended loan. He says, as trustees, we look for a partnership with our Greek friends that requires no one to relinquish their claims, asks for no changes to laws which are not ours to write, but which finds practical, pragmatic, and rational way forward. This is where it's going to fall down, I think. And Osborne said that the sculptures have always been, quote, controversial. We should not shy from that controversy. I think too often we thought, let's keep quiet. If we don't talk about things that are difficult, then no one else will. And continuing, it's not a particularly happy situation where we've had this standoff with Greece for many decades. And the level of scholarship and engagement that we have with many other countries is not one that is replicated with some Greek museums. And if you fail to get in step with what is happening across the world, with institutions across the world, with repatriation, there will be other institutions that cease to collaborate with you. This is it goes on to talk about of course, the theft from the British Museum, which has naturally, I think, made things slightly more tricksy, because it does obviously point the question of how safe are things in the British Museum when members of staff are robbing the place blind. So the Scarlet, yes, temporarily, and also it's not a transfer of ownership. And what this feels like to me is, it feels like somebody walking up to someone in a playground, punching them in the eye, and then going, sorry. And then when the person who's been punched in the eye is crying and wants something to be done, and a punishment, the person who's done the punching goes, well, I said sorry, so that should be enough. We should just shake hands and be friends, and nothing should now happen to me. It feels like it's missing the point. And so now what the British Museum can do is go, well, we tried, but there was just no negotiation. If you're not even prepared to discuss repatriation, that's not a negotiation. That's not a negotiation. My opinion. Connected to this is the following. The British Museum are loaning the ancient Greek Medeus Hydra to Greece. This is a Greek vase that dates back to 420 BC, and it's going to the Acropolis Museum in Athens. This is the first time in 250 years that this vase has left the confines of the British Museum. It was acquired by the British Museum. Acquired, such an interesting word, isn't it? Acquired by the British Museum in 1772 after being purchased in the 1760s by William Hamilton, the British envoy to Naples in Italy. It has been traditionally on display at the British Museum, and this loan is part of the ongoing partnership between the British Museum and the Greek museums. The exhibition is called Meanings, Personifications and Allegories from Antiquity to Today. After it's been presented in Athens, it's going to be displayed at the Louvre as part of an exhibition called Olympism, a modern invention and ancient legacy. So it's going to be in Paris from the 24th of April to the 16th of September, both 2024. It certainly is. It certainly is, isn't it? It's new to me. It's not how I recognize words. But then, I do just have access to the Oxford English Dictionary. So who am I? Who am I to judge? I have no idea. That is not something that I know about. Is it? The name is William Hamilton, 1760s, British envoy to Naples in Italy. Is that the same person? Do not know. Interesting question. Thank you, Brian. This vase loan is happening at the same time as the potential agreement about the Parthenon sculptures are going on. And of course, this would be such a win for the British Museum, because if the Greek museums accept the Parthenon sculptures on a loan basis, then that is essentially acknowledging that they aren't theirs. That is, in some ways, this is not, I don't think, about confronting the difficult and knotty question. This is about trying to put the nail in the coffin once and for all by essentially trying to back the museum into a corner of accepting a loan of their own objects. It's tricksy. It's a very tricksy way to behave, I think. So we've also heard that Osborne has once again highlighted the controversial nature of the sculptures and their significance in portraying ancient Athens' history at the British Museum. He acknowledged the long-standing standoff, as we said, and lamented the disparity in engagement with Greek museums compared to other countries. Yeah, other countries are giving their stuff back, babe. That's why. That's why. Apparently, it is the same one. Oh, there we go. And sorry, yes, I'll go back to that comment in the second page. Apparently, it is the same one. So there we go. And exactly. But leave it much longer, and it's going to look like it was done under duress. It's already looking dicey to give it back. It's already looking like it might be under duress to give it back in that way. But leave it much longer, and it's just going to look so terrible, so terrible. Now, this I've put in updates because this, I believe, is another find connected to something we've talked about previously, which is this building of this road. So we're told that on November the 7th, a well-preserved Maya warrior statue head was with a serpentine headdress was found in its construction for the Maya train. So we have talked about the Maya train's route previously and the things that have been found there. This is a new thing that has been found there. Measuring approximately 13 inches tall and 11 inches wide. And it was found during excavation of a wall in something called Maudsley's Temple 6, named after British archaeologist Alfred Maudsley. Apparently, despite there being some slight cracks in it, the artifact is still in a state of good conservation. And it's thought that this object might date back to the earliest years of Chichen Itza, which was founded in around 455 CE. And this site was a World Heritage Site as designated by UNESCO in 1988. This discovery of the statue head was made for the Programme for the Improvement of Archaeological Zones, which is currently heading the construction of the Maya train. This is going to be a 1,500 kilometre railway that's going to traverse the Yucatan Peninsula and will run through 5 states to connect various tourist destinations and archaeological sites. I've got to say, when that is up and running, that sounds amazing. These excavations have allowed archaeologists to work directly with university students and local residents to recover heritage sites, cultural objects, and also individuals' burial sites. They have recovered more than 1 million pottery fragments, over 57,000 building structures, 2,000 personal artifacts, 660 human burials, and 2,252 natural structures linked with human settlements. The Mexico's president has pointed out this project will revitalize the economy in the country's southeast, because that's something I think is really important to remember, particularly when the conversation about the value of history really does serve your national economy. Having historians on site, so to speak, and a flourishing heritage network, that is the lifeblood of such a large sector of tourism, that to ignore that and to not be funneling money into producing those historians for the future is just so screamingly short-sighted. It is worth pointing out that the construction of this Maya train has been met with opposition from many indigenous communities because they have been threatened with displacement, while scholars have warned of there being potential damage to the region's archaeological sites. Scientists and lawyers have warned of environmental damage, particularly to the peninsula's Calakmul Biosphere Reserve, a designated UNESCO World Heritage Site and home to Mexico's largest forest reserve, as well as nearly 24,000 indigenous residents. So that is something that I hope is going to be appropriately managed, and it is massively concerning. But the find is quite exceptional. Now we're going to hop into our repatriation news. We have got the news that 5 Egyptian artifacts are going to be returned from the US to Egypt. This, we're told, marks a milestone in cultural heritage preservation between the two countries. A ceremony was held in Washington, D.C., and Egypt received the artifacts from the Internal Security Division of the US Department of the Interior. These artifacts consist of a bronze statue of the Egyptian god Seth. There's also a carved basalt scarab beetle and a fragment of an Egyptian statue dating from 15,000 to 600 BCE. There was also an enameled fish and a falcon's head that date back to the Ptolemaic era. In 2021, Egypt and the United States, who are part of the 1970 UNESCO Convention, signed a 5-year memorandum of understanding to impose restrictions on importing certain categories of Egyptian cultural property to the US. During the ceremony, the Egyptian ambassador expresses gratitude to American authorities for their efforts to return the artifacts and praised the effective cooperation between Egypt and the US in protecting cultural heritage. These artifacts the importance of them has been stressed because they do represent a valuable and rich heritage for the country. They hold great historical and cultural significance for Egyptians. The Deputy Assistant Director of the US Department of Homeland Security, his name is Jeffrey Darren, said, "We are diligently investigating crimes relating to illegal import, export, and distribution of cultural properties, antiquities, and art. These efforts closely coordinated with the US Customs and Border Protection across all ports in the United States." So that's a very, very good sign, I think. Lovely. Hopefully more will follow. A message here, UNESCO. In 2022, the Central Office for Combating Trafficking in Cultural Property has launched a preliminary investigation into the seizure of a large draped fragmentary marble torso in France. This investigation, conducted under the authority of the Paris Public Prosecutor's Office, was begun following a report made by the Louvre Museum after an application for an export certificate. Understandably so. The I cannot imagine how frustrating and painful it must be to be an individual who has dedicated their life to the bronze artwork that is traditional to that area, and to be told that to go and see the largest collection of those kinds of artifacts and that kind of work, you have to take a really expensive plane ride and then book a hotel in one of the most expensive cities on earth to see the work made by your own ancestors in the flesh. Utterly unacceptable. There is if every oil painting ever created in England or Britain was in Cairo or Toronto or wherever else, and so anybody who was at Central St Martin's doing fine art had to get on a plane to go and see the great masters, we would be outraged. Rightly so, I think. Rightly so. The museum, we're told, the Louvre alerted French Museums Department, which in turn then alerted the OCBC. And then there was an in-depth study by the French Archaeological Mission in Libya, and the bust was then authenticated as having originated from the necropolis of ancient Cyrene, a site that had been the target of looting for many years. So this bust is therefore, they talk about this article, is one of the categories of artifacts on the red list of Libyan heritage in danger. We are told this case is exemplary in the way that professionals from different sectors, including museums, the Ministry of Culture, and the justice system, French law enforcement agencies, and the art market work together to identify the illegal status of the bust and secure its return. This case also highlights the importance of the red lists in preventing the purchase of objects illegally placed on the market by raising awareness on the most vulnerable categories of objects in a country or region, making it a very useful tool in the exercise of due diligence by art market professionals. This case also highlights the important role played by actors in the art world, such as galleries, which can play a significant role in restituting an object to its rightful owner once illicit provenance has been demonstrated. This needs to be all kind of, what this is saying to me is that for this to work, this needs to be a hand in glove situation of everybody working together. The example I give as well, and this for me goes as well for human remains. When you walk through the British Museum and the pharaohs of ancient Egypt and their family members who have been removed from their tombs against any wish they would have had and put on display in a British museum, just imagine if it had been the other way around, and that back in the 1900s or whenever else, 1920s, 1930s, a group had come over from Cairo, excavated Westminster Abbey, and taken our kings, and they were now on display in the museum at Cairo. Imagine if, rather than having those great lavish tombs in Westminster Abbey, those places of, in some cases, pilgrimage for sainted kings, imagine if instead of them being there, they were in the museum at Cairo. It just, and that is what's happening. And to me, I can't help but completely understand why it all needs to go home. Imagine that. Just imagine that. Imagine what would happen if that was even suggested. History does have value, and value is now measured depending on the monetary assigned to it. It certainly does. And yes, I absolutely agree. Maintaining and protecting historical artifacts is very, very expensive. And that can work in two ways. It certainly means that I think we have to have a big question about what is allowed to be in private collections. Because up and down the country and across the world, there are priceless items in private collections that there is no oversight. Zero oversight as to what's happening. Nothing. There are books that are utterly priceless. In some cases, there are maybe 3 extant in the world that we know of that have been allowed to be bookwormed, moth-eaten, water damaged, wine damaged, and nobody is doing anything because they're in the hands of private collectors. Nothing we can do. So I absolutely think that there needs to be, all of these things are a conversation, and the heritage community as a whole needs to have oversight and support. But I also think that it's vital that part of this, the security of an object and maintaining its value, if you will, is ensuring that the narrative it comes with, the context that explains it, is appropriate. And if you look at the way in which certain artifacts have been documented in museums all over the place, that lack of provenance and that lack of context coming because we've taken them out of culture, we've divorced them from their culture, it does actually devalue their place in some respects. So look at the comments. No, baby, didn't. No. Because if you own, you could own a first folio, and you could just, if it's a private collector, you could own a first folio, and if you so chose, you could rip out every single page and wipe your bottom with it. You could use it as a topper for your coffee table if you wanted. It's yours. There is absolutely nothing stopping you apart from a moral compunction. Whereas if you took a grade 1 listed building and behaved with a similar level of nonsense, there would be a penalty for that. But no one is checking any of this stuff. This is something I did not know about. I was very interested to see this. There is a call to return a quilt that was sewn by convicts who were being transported. This is in the back room of the National Gallery of Australia. It's a historically significant quilt that's in storage. It's adorned with flowers, birds, and other shapes. Night, darling. Time for bed. He just had to get up to go to the toilet. So if you heard "Hi, Mama," that's my son. So we're told it's had its own journey since then, and for almost 150 years, it then reappeared in an attic in Scotland in 1987. It's now at this gallery in Canberra, and there are calls to bring it back to Tasmania. The women who made this were given their sewing materials and taught to quilt by the famed Quaker Elizabeth Fry. She was part of the British Ladies' Society for the Reformation of Female Prisoners, because that's what they need, needlepoint. Do you know what? Why not? At a time when prisons were focused on punishment, with both harsh physical and mental punishment being meted out at the island's Port Arthur site, she was convinced she could help reform some of the prisoners, and so she gathered a group of women to help her. Actually, it's art therapy, isn't it? It's called the Raja Quilt, and it's believed to be the only surviving quilt made by convict women aboard the 50 ships that came to Van Diemen's Island. This enabled the women to learn the skill of sewing. And of course, embroidery and sewing was something that could then be repurposed as something that could earn them money. Dr. Henri said that her efforts were remarkable, given that convict women were more generally treated as though they were, quote, the scum of the earth, it being considered, quote, easier to keep them at the bottom of the pile. They were referred to by historians and many people at the time as, quote, whores and prostitutes. The more you read about them, the more you find these were generally impoverished women who found themselves in circumstances that led them to situations that then found them imprisoned. And that's sort of what I meant when I was sort of talking about the embroidery, is that probably what they needed was a adequate social care system that hadn't left them in the kind of poverty that left them with very few choices. We're told this quilt, which is made up of 2,000 individual pieces, is in an incredibly fragile state. It's not often on display. It will next be scheduled to be shown in 2024. Any handling of the textile puts pressure on the seams. It could lead them to split. A Sydney-based playwright called Kate Whitaker is leading a push to bring the quilt back to Tasmania through her latest theatre production, Jane Franklin and the Raja Quilt, at Hobart's Theatre Royal. Anybody near Hobart? Is this something that you can go and check out? I mean, what an incredible thing. It's written deliberately to push this sentiment and to bring it home. She acknowledged the fragile quality of the kilt, but she said it offers a rare glimpse into the life of women convicts, that it's important to display it. It's evidence to us that these women were extremely clever. We tend to belittle what women's crafts are, yet this great beauty that they created together, there must have been a lot of synergy and cooperation. I think that's the beauty of it. We can't hide something. That's the spirit of these women. Oh, well, Jessie, lovely. And Lil, if you let us know what the quilt looks like. I mean, the pictures are, isn't it beautiful? What a fabulous thing. Isn't it fabulous? So the quilt is sewn in 1841. So 180-ish years. Have I done maths wrong? I hate doing maths. It's since 1841 old. I can't do maths. When I first saw this next headline and I saw the words Florida Man, I immediately thought of that game where you put in your birthday and just type Florida Man in Google and something hilarious comes up. But this honestly kind of fits. If your birthday happened to be on the date where this could happen, Florida Man finds fully intact mammoth jaw. Odd. While diving in alligator-infested waters, Florida. What is going on with your menfolk? What is happening? Why, sir? Those are not there. Do you not have a swimming pool? Those are not waters to be swimming in, because alligators will eat you. It's what they do. So anyway, we've got a rare, fully intact mammoth jaw, estimated to be about 10,000 years old. John Kretosoulis runs Fossil Junkies Dig and Dive Charters, which sounds like your excursion comes with a bucket of chicken wings, and good for him, frankly. On Tuesday, while scouting out new places to dive along the Peace River near Arcadia, he found the fossil of a lifetime. Does he take people into alligator waters? This feels like a bad idea. Captain John, as he is known, is a self-proclaimed fossil junkie. As a kid, my grandmother took me to the library. They had this little fossil dig. There was a little shark's teeth in a gravel box kit, and I was hooked. He's upgraded from the little gravel box to diving in Southwest Florida's alligator-infested waters. Babe, the library was a better choice. He said, I strictly dive only in the wintertime. When the water gets cool like this, the gators are more dormant. That's not That's not dormant, though, is it? That's just more dormant. I feel like it's a bad choice. But he found a cool thing. This wasn't the case on Tuesday. Captain John said his buddy pulled him out of the water after spotting something he missed. So I went to the surface, and when I got back up there, he said, "You didn't see that big gator?" He said, "No, I wasn't looking for gators. I was looking for fossils." And he said it's a good thing he kept the focus on the fossils because he came across something he thought was a log at the same spot the next day. I grabbed onto it just to hold on for a second, and then was like, "This is not a tree; it's a mammoth's jaw." So he's taken the jaw to ancient artworks in Tampa, who will restore it and attach the molars back. He's registering it as a fossil with the state of Florida, and officials there could decide to take it. He said that the fossil will be proudly displayed in his living room with the rest of his collection, if not. And then there's a link. If you would like to book a trip with Captain John's Fossil Junkies Dig and Dive Charters, you can visit his website here. Look, I want you to have a good time. But there is something about alligator-infested waters, even in winter when they're more dormant, that makes me go, do you know what? Do you know what? Maybe don't. Maybe don't. I don't. That's not going to be. That's not going to be pasta, is it? That's noodling. It's not going to be about pasta, is it? I want everyone to have a lovely time. I just think that if your lovely time involves swimming in gator-infested waters, pick another hobby. It's a no from me. And do you know what? I'm sure he's very well trained and experienced, but he is also a person that thought, I like fossils. And he demands that you call him Captain John. Nope. Not for me, thank you. They think they have found the oldest pyramid in the world. This is an underground pyramid in Indonesia. A giant pyramid buried underground just off the coast of Indonesia could be the oldest in the world. Gunung Padang, which means Mountain of Enlightenment, is built into a volcano on the island of West Java. And scientists think it could be the oldest monolithic structure in the world, older than Stonehenge or the pyramids of Giza, which are both 5,000 years old. Their recent analysis has led scientists to believe that an ancient society carved the structure into the volcano's core thousands of years ago. The results of this recent study comes many years after researching the site. They used drilling and underground radars to try and find out more about this pyramid. And this analysis have given them a timeline of construction. They think the building began sometime in the last glacial period, so at least 16,000 years ago, possibly as far back as 27,000 years ago. The core part of the structure probably built between 25,000 and 14,000 BCE, but then abandoned for several thousand years. Construction then restarted, they think, around 7,900 to 6,100 BCE. And around this time, builders seem to have buried parts of the site on purpose. It's then thought that the pyramid was finished in around 2000 to 1100 BCE, adding the stone terraces that can be seen if on the surface of the volcano today. Archaeologists say that further researchers needed to find out who the people who built Gunung Padang are and why they created this structure. Look, I'm happy to sit in a Winnebago in Gatorland. What I'm not going to do is swim in the waters of Gatorland with the gators. It's a note from me. It's an absolute note from me. I don't know what Coral Castle is. I will investigate. A significant Bronze Age metal detector is at it again, friends. A significant hoard of Bronze Age treasures have been discovered by detectorists in Wales. These items are found between 2020 and 2022, and they include bronze artifacts such as axes, spearheads, rings, and a sword scabbard. They were discovered by Dr. Peter Anning and Alex Evans in 2021 in an empty field in Wales where drainage work had been done. These items were dated between 1800 BC, and it's likely that they were deliberately buried in the ground in a community ritual, it's thought. This collection of mostly small artifact fragments offers a fascinating glimpse into the rich tapestry of life in late Bronze Age Cardiff. Through these objects, we gain insight into the array of connections with distant communities, which would have helped people thrive in this part of Cardiff around 3,000 years ago. Oh, I've just seen. Well, congratulations for rebuilding your PC. Hello. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time. And I've just seen the story about the coral. Oh, isn't coral really sharp and also really necessary for the sea? Like, it's a really sweet story, but it also required the destruction of a maritime habitat. Hmm. I will investigate this. The hoard is evaluated by the nation's Treasure Valuation Committee, and a museum has said it's interested in acquiring the items. Adam Gwilt, who is the principal curator of prehistory at the museum, has called the hoard a significant find, one that, quote, adds to the bigger regional picture of the culture and area during the Bronze Age. And it also discovered two other items that were declared treasure. One is a Roman silver ring fragment and also a medieval silver brooch pin. He said, I'm not quite. His Anning, yes, Peter Anning. I said, I'm not quite sure how I ended up with so many treasure cases in such a small period of time. I'm glad that the finds are being acquired by Museum Wales and Cambridge Museum, and hope that both the public museums will benefit from them being in their respective collection. A second silver ring fragment was found in November 22 when Richard Merton was using a metal detector in a field in Powys, Wales. The ring being from the 1st or 2nd century, likely once held a semi-precious stone or a glass setting. And the Powys Land and Welsh Pool Library, the Powys Land Museum and Welsh Pool Library have expressed interest in acquiring the ring. So we shall see. A 4,000-year-old tomb may indicate how agriculture came to Western Norway. Now, there are photographs attached to this article, but they do show human remains, hence why I'm not displaying them here. Archaeologists from the University of Bergen have uncovered this tomb, and they think it's going to provide new answers on how agriculture came to Western Norway. Researchers found a stone-lined tomb containing the remains of 5 individuals. According to a press announcement from the university, these types of graves are only found in Buskerud, Ostfold, and in Denmark, never in the West in Norway. This is the most unique Stone Age find in Norway in more than 100 years. From 5000 BC to 4000 BC, the earliest agricultural settlements emerged in the vicinity of Oslofjord to the east, using technology from southern Scandinavia. This period also saw the arrival of corded ware culture, which brought new weapons, tools, and an Indo-European dialect from which the later Norwegian language developed. And then over time, spanning from 1500 BC to 500 BC, agricultural communities expanded across southern Norway, while those residing in areas north of Trondelag persisted in hunting and fishing. The tomb they found is linked to these agricultural communities located in the east and south, signifying a migration that introduced farming to western Norway. The project manager says, quote, "This makes it possible for us to gain completely new insight into the early agricultural phase." So that is fascinating. We shall see what else they find out about it. 2,000 seal impressions have been found in ancient Dolichi. Dolichi? A team of archaeologists from the Asia Minor Research Centre have found these 2,000 seal impressions. Dolichi was founded as a Hellenistic colony during the 2nd century BC in the present-day province of Gaziantep in Turkey. During antiquity, this city was located in the ancient region of Sihestica, which was annexed by the Roman Empire in AD 72. Excavations of this city in the past have unearthed the remains of a Mithraic temple, rock-cut graves, and a stele depicting a previously unknown Iron Age deity. There's been a recent study by the Asia Minor Research Centre that has found over 2,000 seal impressions used to seal documents from the city's municipal archive. These impressions consist of stamped clay lumps that range from 5 millimeters to 2 centimeters in size. Professor Michael Blomer from the University of Munster says, quote, "The images of the official seals have a direct urban connection. As a rule, they show their most important deities, such as Jupiter Dolichenus, the main god of the city. Between the mid-2nd and mid-3rd century AD, the veneration of this god gained widespread popularity within the Roman military. The smaller private seals they found exhibit a diverse array of images and symbols, shedding light on the cultural impact that religion played in the lives of the people of Dolichi. The gods on the seals provide insights into the people's religious environments. There are mythical figures or rare private portraits that indicate a strong Greco-Roman influence. According to the researchers, quote, "The archive documents themselves were destroyed in a major fire, possibly in AD 253, when the Persian king Sapor I destroyed numerous cities in the Roman province of Syria." So this is what remains of that. And what an amazing survival it is. I when you have some really small detailed work, think, for example, of the way in which they used to pull pins. So they would pull a piece of wire and sharpen it, and they would tie the top of the pin, the wire into a knot. They would then beat to create the pinhead. And 9 times out of 10, that work is done in a cottage industry by women and children, people with very small hands who can do this delicate kind of work. So perhaps that is what we are. Perhaps that is what we're seeing evidence of. That this is work done by small hands and keen eyes, which tends to be younger people. But I can't prove that. I just see that and I think of pins and I think of those kind of cottage industries. A hedge monument and Roman kilns have been found at housing digs. Possibly gnomes. Maybe Roman gnomes were in charge of carving the seals. Who knows? Could be. The remains of what's believed to be a henge monument and Roman pottery centre have been unearthed in Nottinghamshire. On the site, they have found human activity, evidence of it dating back 12,000 years. The find includes 73 Roman kilns, which makes it a pottery site, we're told, of national importance. They've also found a circular ditch dotted with upright timbers found near a spring. Middleback, which is where this site, is a 269-acre urban extension to the south of Newark, which will contain more than 3,000 homes and be served by a £1 million link road. Historically, this area is famous for its links to the English Civil War, but previous excavations have also found traces of occupation from 12,000 years ago, so near the end of the Ice Age. The first find they made was a major one. It was the enclosure, dating back to 3,300 BCE, roughly, which contained the remains of a series of internal posts and pits that they think formed one or more concentric arcs of upright timbers. It was also situated at the head of a spring, which the archaeologists said might mean it had cultural and religious significance to prehistoric people. Another significant find was a polished stone axe from Langdale in Cumbria, probably of a similar date to the enclosure. Langdale is a beautiful part of the world. If you are ever coming to the Lake District, I recommend it entirely. I think we might have success in my son's bedroom. I think we've done it. I think my husband looks hollowed out. We've got a sleeping child, a passy-free sleeping child. Thank you, Jamie. You're my hero. I love you too. I'd love a cup of tea, thank you. You're a prince among men. We'll do it. Oh, he's up. Okay. However, it was found buried with iron pottery from about 3,000 years later, and it bore marks likely to show its reuse as a whetstone, suggesting that it had been valued for generations. Congratulations, we spoke too soon. He's awake again. My husband is a very patient, wonderful man. The site also contained 35 cremation burials from the Bronze Age and necklace beads of a similar date, traces of a sizable Iron Age farming community. They also found 73 remarkably well-preserved Roman kilns, which also had, amazingly, a vast quantity of related pottery. A spokesman for Oxford Archaeology said, quote, "This number of kilns is largely unprecedented, certainly in the Newark area and more widely across the Midlands. It probably represents a previously unknown pottery production centre that is of regional, if not national, importance." Isn't that incredible? So the pictures we've got the Henge Monument starting on this side, and then we've got the kilns in the middle, and then beads from a cremation burial, which indicate influences, we're told, from continental Europe, dating to around 1,800 BC. Tell me about it. He is 3. He was 3 in September, and he is a spicy little nugget. He thinks he's the boss. The other day, I will stop banging on about my child, but he's very cute. He has started turning around and saying, "Too bad, so sad." Too bad, so sad. When he's being sassy. And he looked at me today in my face because I told him he couldn't have something, and he crossed his arms and went, "How dare you, mummy?" Very serious about the whole situation. It's very difficult. About 6 months ago, this child turned to me and went, "You're not the boss of me." And I was like, clearly I'm not. Clearly I'm not. Clearly not. And I can only blame myself because that child is a million % my genetics. My husband is so mellow, so laid back, so chilled. And I am wound so tight, and I'm such a control freak, and the kid is the same. It is the oh, I only have myself to blame. Oh, it's a good job he's cute as well, and he is really funny, which makes it difficult because he says things, and you're not supposed to laugh, but you do because he's so funny. Don't ill wish me. I know they're going to be a nightmare because he's already the kid has no fear, zero. When we were on this holiday, there was a water park in the holiday place, and there were like big slides, and the older kids. I had your child is a daredevil when other parents see him doing something, and they come up to you and go, he was kind of a bit fast, or how old is he? And you think, oh, is my parenting being called into question because he's a danger nugget? And the answer is yes, it was. But I have no frame of reference as to what is normal and what isn't. The number of times I've been at playgrounds and he has gone down hard, he's just bounced back up. And I know it's bad because other parents, like dads of older boys, have gone, and I'm like, oh, apparently my kid doesn't do that. I don't know what the plan is with these finds. I'm assuming that as it's been found and so much being made of it, I'm assuming that it's going to be put on display in a museum. When I find out what's happening, it will be an update. Genuinely, there have been times where he's gone down so hard that I've been like, this is the one. This is the A&E trip. This is it. That's going to need stitches. There's no way that's not a bleeder. And he just bounces back up, not a mark on him. And I don't understand. I'm crying and he's fine. Right, we have got 3,000 Roman coins that have been found at Claterne. This is in Italy. Claterne was a Roman town on the Via Emilia that was situated between the colony of Bononia and the Forum Cornelia. This town was founded during the 2nd century BC, with continuous occupation lasting until the collapse of the Roman Empire. Previous studies on this site have found remnants of a forum, sculptures, bathhouses, streets, and domus containing vibrant coloured marbles and mosaics. The Italian Secretary of State for Culture has said, quote, due to the importance and quantity of its remains have been recovered so far, it is probably a Pompeii of the North. In the latest excavations, archaeologists found unearthed over 3,000 Roman coins, consisting of mainly silver and bronze coins, numerous gems with engravings dedicated to Roman deities, and the most notable coin, we're told, is a Republican-era quinary, which is a rare silver coin dated to 97 BC. Researchers have said that these discoveries indicate that this place was more than just a transit town. It was instead, quote, a trading centre with direct contacts with Rome. We are told that a large part of the site is yet to be discovered. In fact, in other articles, I saw the quote that there's about only 10% has been excavated so far. So much, much more to find. And I look forward to seeing what we learn about it. I'm loving all of these stories about. It's very nice to see your stories about the kids in your life, because sometimes when you're in the trenches with a toddler, you think, do I need to phone a physician or a priest? What is happening? Because toddlers are rough. They are. They are. It's a tough time. It's a tough time. I don't know for sure. I mean, I'm assuming that if you have a value where you ascribe value to silver, then presumably it doesn't really matter whose face is on it, but it would have to be useful in places where the coins were seen as having an intrinsic value, maybe for jewelry or perhaps as themselves as coins. But I would imagine that they can be used for trade if people accept them, although this is by no means my area of expertise. So if anybody would like to fill in the blanks here for JT, that would be amazing. A unique 2,800-year-old ivory decorated piece has been discovered in the ancient city of Hattusa. This is in Turkey. This is the Hittite capital, and its ruins date back to the Bronze Age, around 2000 BC. In 1986, this site was inscribed on the UNESCO's World Heritage List. Excavations that started 116 years ago in the ancient city of Hattusa are still ongoing. They've been carried out on behalf of the German Archaeological Institute since 2006. So we are in our 117th year of excavation. They found this ivory piece, approximately 30 centimetres long and 10 centimetres wide, featuring a sphinx, a statue with a human head and an animal body, a lion and two tree of life figures drawn on a shiny background. There are studies ongoing regarding the piece on what figures can be seen under suitable light conditions due to the layer on it. It's thought that this possibly added decoration to a wooden box or furniture made of wood. The artifact is broken on its right and left sides, and the upper and lower sides are in their original state. So they think that the piece was originally longer. The significance of the piece, we are told, is that we are confronted for the first time with a piece adorned with a scene so intricately and beautifully carved. Extensive excavations have been conducted in this area for the Iron Age. We have not come across such detailed work. In terms of both the stage and the iconography and style used, we can better reveal the relations of this place towards southern Anatolia and its artistic relations towards the southwest and Greece in the period. That is, in the first millennium BC. This work is going to be exhibited at the Bozacoy Museum after the scientific studies on the piece have been completed. Now, this next news item should have been higher up because it relates to the Pompeii of the North, and I'm not quite sure why I have jumped. So basically, the slides are in the order they're in. They relate to the numbers, but this should be the other way around. This next one should have been before this one. Yes, this one is the one we're talking about now is in modern day Turkey. And thank you, that's filling in what JT. That was my thought process. That because there are examples of Roman coins that have been hole punched is the wrong word, but made into jewelry. Thank you for that. So yes, this is following up on that. I wanted to include it because we've got images of those jewels as well as the coin, and we've got some site. A picture of the site. So I wanted to include this slide to show you the pictures of the gems they have found, because I think they are quite special and very intricately and beautifully carved. And presumably this was in some piece of jewellery, a ring or a brooch or something, or some such thing like that. And we have seen gems like this found around Bath sites. I want to say it was Northamptonshire again. But there was a whole collection of them found at an old Roman bath, I believe. So, fascinating. But yes, that should have been the slide above. I do apologise. Hearing the door open, maybe. I'm going to just whisper while the door's open, because he might be asleep now. Let's hope. Let's see. We'll live and learn. Well, it could be a long night, friends. Could be a long night. They are like very that's certainly what it reminded me of. They are very lovely things, aren't they? Beautiful carvings. Next up is something that's possibly going to well, I know it's already created some shenanigans, hasn't it? The North Hertfordshire Museum is going to refer to the Emperor Elagabalus as with female pronouns of she and her. This comes after classical texts claim the emperor once said, quote, "Call me not lord, for I am a lady." You're right, dear. Yes, it was North Hertfordshire. That's where you come from, darling, isn't it? He heard North Hertfordshire and hopped in. The museum spokesman said it was only polite and respectful to be sensitive to identifying pronouns of people in the past. They conducted with the charity Stonewall to ensure, quote, displays, publicity and talks are as up-to-date and inclusive as possible. Marcus Aurelius Antoninus, better known as Elagabalus, if I've pronounced that wrong, Elagabalus, ruled the Roman Empire for 4 years from 218 AD to up to the assassination. They were 18. Wow. In 22 AD. This news article is using male pronouns, which is an interesting choice, as that's not what the museum is doing. Elagabalus, we're told, became an increasingly controversial figure during the reign, with a reputation for sexual promiscuity. Cassius Dio, a senator and contemporary, writes in his chronicles that the emperor was married 5 times, 4 times to women, and once to Heracles, a former slave and chariot driver. In this final marriage, Dio writes the emperor, quote, was bestowed in marriage and was termed wife, mistress, and queen. The debate over Elagabalus's gender identity is long-standing and often splits academics. Dr. Shushma Malik, a Cambridge classics professor, told the BBC, quote, the historians we use to try and understand the life of Elagabalus are extremely hostile towards him and therefore cannot be taken at face value. We don't have any direct evidence from Elagabalus himself of his own words. There are many examples of Roman literature of times where effeminate language and words are used as a way of criticising or weakening a political figure, which of course still goes on today. References to Elagabalus wearing wigs, makeup, and removing body hair might have been written in order to undermine the unpopular emperor. Dr. Malik added that whilst Romans were aware of gender fluidity and there are examples of pronouns being changed in literature, it, quote, was usually used in reference to myth and religion rather than to describe living people. However, Councillor Keith Hoskins, who is executive member for enterprise and arts at North Herts Council, said texts such as Dio's provide evidence that, quote, Elagabalus most definitely preferred the she pronoun, and as such, this is something we reflect when discussing her in contemporary terms, as we believe is standard practice elsewhere. We know that Elagabalus identified as a woman and was explicit about which pronouns to use, which shows that pronouns are not a new thing. I don't really know. I think there's a very strong point being made by the classics professor that if this is not in Elagabalus's own hand, if all we have is reported speech, if we have an assassinated emperor, we do throughout history, the effeminizing of a male figure who is deemed unpopular or unworthy of rule is something that has been consistently used to demean and devalue them, and in many ways to indicate their unfitness to rule. So if this museum has got it incorrect in this in the new way that they are wording their descriptions and displays, what they are doing is actually compounding a misogynistic narrative that everything that is effeminate must be bad, and so a bad king must be effeminate. So I think it's the conversation needs to happen, but and I have by no means seen the evidence, but I can certainly see what the classics professor is saying, and if this is the case, then what's happening here is disrespectful to a person's memory, potentially. And I think that this is, I mean, as an early modernist, what I have seen from an understanding of humoral science is that sex is in some ways mutable, because sex is humorally designated and driven, and there are examples in medical textbooks of an individual reconstituting their humors to such a degree that they change sex. In the early modern and medieval period, there is also a place for the recognition of what they refer to as hermaphrodites, what we would recognize as the intersex. And there is an acknowledgement that this happens. There is an acknowledgement that sex is thus not a binary that people are held in. But what is the case is that when it comes to gender and gender presentation, it's very much if you are intersex, there is an expectation that at a certain point you will pick one and stick to it. So there is a potentially a difference in understanding, and I do also question whether Elagabalus would have ever understood themselves as being trans. I don't know when that concept emerges, but equally, in the same way that somebody in the 1600 who engaged in same-sex relationships is not going to regard themselves as homosexual. So there is that kind of, because that's not the word that would have been used. So I suppose there is always a question of, by imposing a modern definition, do we misunderstand the past in a way that's unhelpful or not? I don't know. But I do think that this is an interesting question to have, and I would like to see more source documents to explore it. And, there are examples of people pushing the boundaries in their presentation of their gender. And part of the reason why you pick a gender and stick to it is, in some ways, particularly in England, because of sumptuary law. There is an understanding that the law of sumptuary and dress code is about your position in the world. And when you inhabit a world that states that men are by God placed above women, those who present as men should therefore dress in the way that is expected of men, and those who present as women should do the same, because that is God's plan for the universe. And breaking that, being, someone like Mary Frith or Mole Cutpurse who cross dresses, is confusing. It's one of the reasons why the boy players are confusing and potentially dangerous and risky. So it's interesting, I think, to consider the linguistic definitions. The existence has always been there, but the way in which it's been contextualized, codified, and explained has always, I think, altered as time has gone on. We have got a well-preserved lion mosaic discovered in the ancient city of Precius ad Hypium. Oh, that's just gone away. This is located in the Kolmarap district of Dyck, which is called the Ephesus of the Western Black Sea. And there is a fascination of kind of that sort of playing with sex and gender in a rhetorical form. So one of the French monarchs had himself portrayed as kind of this pregnant hermaphroditic figure because there was a recognition of the power that came from the capacity to generate life within one's body that was appealing to a French king. I forget which one. And of course, we have the famous Elizabeth I speech. I have the heart and stomach of a king and of a king. I may have the weak and feeble body of a woman, but I have the heart and stomach of a king and of a king of England too. That kind of playing in the, the body politic as something that transcends sex and gender, I think is really interesting. This is where I kind of, the fact that the scholar is saying there's no evidence this is something that the emperor ever provably, that we only have it in documented sources that may well be seeking to degrade and demean. I think that there are questions to be answered in that regard. The excavation team working in the area above the theatre of the ancient city found this lion mosaic in a structure connected to the portico. They believe that this mosaic tiled room represents a late Roman cult site, a space signifying the overall lifestyle of a society or group, encompassing specific values, beliefs, traditions, arts, and other cultural elements. It was determined that the interior walls of the new find, whose wall dimensions are approximately 4.51 meters by 6.42 meters, were covered with marble plates on a thick layer of mortar, and that the room had a rectangular plan in the north-south direction. They also found a platform towards the north of the room that was determined that the entire room was covered with a mosaic floor of finely crafted white, blue, yellow, green, and brown tesserae. This had geometric patterns, featured a border made of larger and more colourful tesserae in a frame-like structure. And the picture that we're seeing on, I think it's the same for you, on my top right, is where this was placed in the room they found. The artifacts found in the room with depictions of drums and flute indicate that this is, quote, a Dionysus cult place. We're told that during the ongoing excavations, a well-preserved rare mosaic depicting two lions looking at a pine tree with drums and a pan flute depicted on the tree branches, which we can see. In the 2nd century BC, the Bithynians, led by their king Prusias I, captured Kyros from the Mariandians and the Heraclea state. Prusias I improved the city and decorated it with many monuments. He fortified it and changed its name to Prusias. The city's ancient theatre, known locally as the 40 Steps, was built during the Hellenistic age, and it includes additions from the Roman period. Just hopping back, this is where I come down it as well. I think I want to be clear, because I said that I don't think that the Roman emperor would have referred to themselves as trans. That doesn't mean that it's not the potential for it to be the same thing that we recognize as trans today, in the same way that what we classify as homosexual people, or people who classify themselves as homosexual, have always existed. It's just that linguistically there wasn't necessarily the term for it. And I think in that, potentially adopting and forcing that definition and designation on somebody with all of its connotations, and in part of that story is the coming out to oneself, to one's community and whatever, as a rite of passage, that if you don't have the language, it's not possible. And so that's why when I talk about people who are same-sex attracted, or who have been in relationships with people of the same sex, when I'm talking about the past, I don't use words like homosexual, because I don't think that's how they would have defined themselves. I don't know if that actually matters, but part of me thinks it probably does, because I think words matter. And I think that there has been, and there continues to be, a long struggle for acceptance and recognition. And I think that using the right words is very important, I think. But I'm of course very happy to be corrected. A Viking ship, remains of a Viking ship have been unearthed at a burial mound where a, quote, seated skeleton and a sword were previously found. The Dionysus worship. This is, now I don't know what this means geographically, because I am woeful at geography. This ancient city is located in the Konolrup district of Duchy. It's called the Ephesus of the Western Black Sea. I don't know what that means. That's very kind of you, Liz. I mean, I'm going to get it wrong, because I think everybody at some point, not intentionally, but it's impossible to inhabit the world and not pick up biases, and to come at things in ways that end up being blundering. All I will say is that if anything I say causes somebody to feel uncomfortable or to feel pain, I want to know if they feel comfortable telling me. It's not their job to educate me. But if they are willing to, I will gladly take that education and learn from it. Maybe. Can't do geography. Can't do it. Just wondering if my husband's texted me. He tends to, if I'm doing something. Well, now you're making me think I've just pronounced it wrong. It's Ephesus, right? Is it Ephesus? Have I gone? Is it? It might not be. Now I'm questioning it. Oh dear. The ancient city of Prusias and Hypium. If people want to, apparently Bulgaria and Romania also border the Black Sea. I'll be honest with you. My geography is woeful, and I don't recognise what that city is. The Konolrap district of Duchy. I don't know where that is in the world. I apologise. But our Vikings, that's our Vikings. If I find, I'll talk about it next time. If someone can tell me, I'll put up a Google Maps. So this discovery about the Viking ship was announced on social media. The archaeologists were conducting a small survey at a burial mound. They found large nails, and confirmed that they found large nails that then they confirmed that it was a site of a Viking ship. The ship dates from the Merovingian era, which lasted from 476 AD to 750 AD. And Gemini, a Scandinavian science and technology publication, apparently said that the ship was built in approximately 700 AD. Ship burials were used for individuals because they believed they offered to a safe passage to the afterlife. This ship isn't the only major find to have been turned up. This burial mound is over 196 feet long. And it was excavated multiple times in the 18th century. In that point, they found iron nails, a bronze cauldron, animal bones, and this seated skeleton with a sword. The skeleton was displayed at a museum as that of Haulag, but eventually the skeleton then disappeared. Oh, that's very interesting. So that date range would normally be pre-Viking. So is it possible the ship is older but was used in a later Viking burial? Is that what they're saying? Because they are calling it a Viking burial. So the skeleton has disappeared. The other items also vanished in the 1920s. The bronze cauldron was apparently said to have been melted down into shoe buckles. This should have gone in the ding-dong section. The area where the ship was found is now the oldest ship trench in Scandinavia. Gemini noticed this means that ship burials occurred far earlier than the researchers previously believed. So ship burials predating what is commonly known as the Viking period. If you're right on this, Marianne, interesting. So it said that dating the ship that far back shows that people had maritime expertise and could build large ships much earlier than previously thought. In which case, if they're using the ships and they are maritime explorers and possibly raiders, and they are thus out Viking, does that maybe mean that the Viking era needs to also be expanded? Possibly. We're told in 2020 a large Viking burial site was discovered by Norwegian archaeologists in Gjelsted's Gel Mound. That was one of the largest Iron Age funerary mounds in Scandinavia to be found, and that mound had been used for centuries, possibly beginning in the 5th century, but the ship itself appeared to have been buried centuries later. Interesting. It's a great question. A lot of people ask about where all of the various bits of pieces of jewellery. I mean, bearing in mind that we are now on our at least our second set of crown jewels in this country, particularly after the Civil War. So in reality, the time of the Viking era is probably more fluid than currently thought. And certainly if this burial, that seems to be pushing it back. There we go. Great minds thinking alike there. Absolutely. Yes. And then not long after that, of course, they got stolen by Colonel Blood, and the crown got squished flat, and the orb went down someone's trousers, and somebody tried to saw through the scepter. From what I've seen of the Vikings on Netflix, Amazon. The images I've seen of the Vikings on Netflix, they're also very, very attractive. All of them are beautiful people, violent, beautiful people, excellent with a small axe. Good for them. Not good for Lindisfarne though. Probably less happy to see them, because when they got out of the tower, shots were fired. No one was killed though. The deputy keeper of the jewels did get his head nearly caved in. He wasn't young, but he did survive that experience. And so too, of course, did Colonel Blood and his gang. In fact, Colonel Blood got rewarded. I've got a video on that because I wonder why. I wonder why. The Book of the Deer. Archaeologists have apparently solved the oldest manuscript mystery. The monastery where the historic Book of the Deer, which is believed to be the oldest surviving Scottish manuscript, was written, has been discovered, we're being told. A 10th century manuscript, which is noted for containing the country's earliest surviving Gaelic writing. The exact site of this monastery in Aberdeenshire had remained a mystery until recently. Samples gathered by archaeologists during a dig focused on a field near the ruined Deer Abbey have finally confirmed its location. And the Book of the Deer provides an insight into the early church, culture, and society of the period. It also features Latin text. Correct. Gaelic, Scots Gaelic, Gaelic. Gaelic is Irish. Thank you. Yes, I did know that. That's why I went with it at first, and I second guessed myself on the basis of that. I forgot which way round it went for a moment, but I got it right the first time. I should have stuck with my original, my gut instinct. I mean, look, if you're going to go out Viking, you need at least 10 reps on the kettlebells, and you probably need to do the monkey bars at least 3 times, because how else are you going to destroy that village? Need it. It's spelt deer like deer with antlers. Those are my antlers. Because you need a visual representation of what antlers were. It's spelt deer like the animal. This book is normally held in the collections of Cambridge University, but it did go on public display in Aberdeen last year in the art gallery. Archaeologists and volunteers have painstakingly uncovered artifacts and features they hoped would lead to the discovery of the site of the monastery being finally identified. We are told they spent weeks excavating later material, including stone and other demolition material, until they got down to the earliest layers. A team of students and volunteers systematically cut sections through all the features, collecting samples, and these are important because it will allow them to do the charcoal for dating where things, pieces and things were. They said it's almost an unwritten law. On the last day or last week of your excavation, you'll always find something really cool. We had a feeling about it. We had this horrible but exciting sense of anticipation, waiting to see if you actually found what you think you found. That painful waiting for the information about the dates is terrible. Then Ali, ever so coyly, sent over an email saying, I think you should check the dates. I open it up and it's just unbelievable. We found the monastery. So there is going to be on BBC Alba a documentary called The Missing Monastery, which will also apparently be on iPlayer. Now, if you are in the States, I know that it's sometimes hard to get hold of iPlayer things. And I, as a law-abiding citizen, would never suggest the use of a VPN, a virtual proxy network, that would place you and your IP address in the UK and thus give you access to iPlayer. I would never suggest that you do that. Never suggest that you do that, but just in case you were in the UK or able to look like you were, if you search on iPlayer the missing monastery, it might show up for you. It might show up for you. They have said on a field near ruined Deer Abbey, which I don't think is specific enough. Aren't Hearts and Hinds are both deer, but one's a boy and one's a girl? Is that right? Hearts and Hinds, is that boy and girl of deer? Have I got that wrong? If I have, I apologise. Hearts and bucks, hinds are doe. Yep. So hearts and hinds, it's a heart and a hind in England and a buck and a doe in the States. Good. We have got this is a cool thing. Inestimable is a hard word to say. Inestimable importance. A 500-year-old cache of pressed flowers reveals new secrets. This is a collection of pressed flowers that were taken from the hillsides of Bologna 500 years ago. And it's unlocking, we're told, knowledge about how the climate crisis and human migration is changing landscapes in northern Italy. These flowers were picked between 1551 and 1586 by a Renaissance naturalist called Ulysses Aldrovandi. The 5,000 delicately cut and dried plants form one of the richest collections of its time. His original purpose was to identify plant species and understand which could be used for pharmaceutical purposes. Now, his carefully pressed specimens are helping botanists to document the enormous changes that have taken place in surrounding landscapes. There's been new research done by the Royal Society that's recently been published. So during his time, Bologna's hills were rich in species that are threatened or have even disappeared today, such as motherwort, which was used for medicinal purposes and is now likely extinct in the region. The total number of species has increased since the 1500s, but the quality of the flora has decreased, with many rarer species declining, researchers said. The Italian population increased by 560% during the study period. This herbarium is, we're told, made up of 15 books, each containing 580 specimens glued to each sheet. We're told, from a historical and scientific perspective, the importance of this herbarium is inestimable. It preserves the memory of the first signs of radical transformation of the European flora and habitats. Part of that transformation is a huge influx of non-invasive species. At the time the collection was being formed, just 4% of flowers were American species, which were almost always exclusively cultivated in private or botanical gardens. Plants such as sweet pepper and courgettes were imported thanks to exploration in Central and Southern America. Since then, there's been a 1,000% increase in non-native flowers from the Americas, which illustrates the growing importance of the American-European trade routes from the Renaissance onwards. The data also shows the effects of the, quote, Little Ice Age, which extended through to the mid-1800s. High mountain species such as the silver grainsbill are typically found more than 1,700 metres above sea level, but Cochoni found it at 800 metres above sea level. The mountain buttercup is now only found above 1,000 metres. During the Little Ice Age, it was found at 300 metres, so coming down because of the cold. Since the 1970s, there's been a project to map the region's entire flora, and they've created a database with more than 500,000 records. And overall, this discovery highlights the importance of records of dried flowers. The researchers have said, quote, a recent scientific trend to dismiss these collections, which are regarded as dusty, cumbersome, unnecessary burdens, very expensive to stock and maintain, and practically of no use for modern research. There is nothing more wrong. Herbaria are indispensable and irreplaceable databanks for many research fields. Global collections contain 390 million specimens, according to the Index Herbarium. Dismissing them would be like dismissing our historical archives, our monuments, or our art collections. Now, look, this is incredible. What an incredible resource. But I can also imagine that if I was in charge of like rare manuscripts, I mean, presumably it's kept with the botany, because you would not be putting dried flowers and seeds and things that attract bugs even more than usual near my books. You would just not. They would need to be hermetically sealed elsewhere. But it's also interesting. I'd be very interested to know how many of the native plants that were used for medicine are now nearly extinct, and when that really happens, like when that you see a massive takedown of that, because a lot of the things would perhaps they're kind of hedgerow plants, some of which I think would be classified as weeds. So I do wonder if hedgerow medicine has suffered because of the mass use of pesticides and weed killer, and how that has potentially impoverished our capacity to care for ourselves. A family has discovered their living room painting is a lost masterpiece worth millions. Do you know what? That is never going to happen to my family. Can you imagine? The article begins, some things become so ordinary. That painting, if that painting is ordinary to you, give your head a wobble. Um, that we easily miss their extraordinary nature. For some people, the decor they spend their lives around is merely sentimental or aesthetically pleasing. However, it can turn out to be extraordinary and of great interest to the world. We've recently seen a TV room painting turn out to be by Peter Bruegel the Younger, and even a garage sale purchase turn out to be Ming Dynasty relics. The latest surprising find is the painting which hung for generations on the wall of a family's living room in Andalusia. As it turns out, it is a 17th century masterpiece entitled The Presentation of the Baby Jesus to St. Barbara by the Flemish Baroque artist Sir Anthony van Dyck. Sir Anthony van Dyck trained in the studio of Peter Paul Rubin, and he later became a court painter to the British royal family. We have that. He is the one that's responsible for the 3 profiles of Charles I. We're told the owner of this painting has no intention of speculating, but he does have a special interest in it staying in Seville, the city where the family now lives, and which is a special connection. The family, we're told, plans to ask for a fair and reasonable price. The museum is reportedly discussing possibilities with the Museum of Fine Arts in Seville in order to keep the painting in its home city of several centuries, even if it no longer hangs on the living room wall. So this is Christ Crowned with Thorns, this painting here by Van Dyck. This is not the painting the family found, but this is the one that this is another example of Van Dyck's work. And I think, frankly, the same with the 3 profile pictures of Charles. I mean, maybe it's the case that if you're around something every day, but surely if you are confronted with the level of skill that that these paintings depict, surely at some point you're going to go, hang on a minute, this is something quite special. I mean, maybe I'm giving myself delusions there that I wouldn't be able to tell the wood from the trees. I'm just wondering why that's the picture they've chosen, because obviously it's not the picture that the family found. I'm just opening up the article to see if I can see why they have chosen to put up Christ crowned with thorns and not the St. Barbara. Um, and I'm just checking if it's actually on the article. So, because the article, the top of the article, you've got the three heads, the three profile images of Charles the First. So you've got that example there. It's taking a while to load. So if it is there, I will tell you so you can go and check it out if you wish to go and see what it looks like. So it's supposed to be, thank you, darling. It's probably tea. It's supposed to be the infant Christ. I'm wondering if it's not, because that's not pictured in the article. So I wonder if it's not been pictured in the article because there isn't currently an extant available image of it that they have license to. So I don't know. The painting measures, we're told, 130 by 92 centimeters, and it has been. They do say in the article, no picture has been released of the work, which is religious in nature. So we will see if there's going to be a picture released. But this is the sort of thing. The reason why they put that up there. This is the sort of thing that one might expect to look like. It's a little confusing. I perhaps should have cut that picture out, but I thought it was a nice one to have. I didn't want to put the Charles one in because that felt even weirder. Staying with art, conservators restore a 17th century portrait of a noblewoman, and they remove cosmetic touch-ups. Now, I've been playing spot the difference with these two. Now, obviously, the lacquer has been taken off, which has taken down that yellow hue, but that's a dirty lacquer. English Heritage has discovered that there was things done to alter to improve this subject's appearance. Now, I am looking between these images, and apart from the change in coloration, I don't know what else has been altered. But carrying on, conservators have now revealed what they are calling the true face of the nobleman Diana Cecil, after spending hours removing changes to her features. You're seeing these two versions of this painting, right? Am I losing it? I can't see that big of a difference. So she is the great granddaughter of William Cecil Lord Burleigh, and her family were very powerful at the Jacobean court. According to English Heritage, she was one of the great beauties of the age, but a full-length painting was found to have undergone some cosmetic alterations. Her lips are apparently made fuller. I cannot see the difference. And her hairline was brought forward. Maybe giving the impression of a smaller forehead. The reason for these changes, which were made in the late 19th or early 20th century, is about apparently those the beauty standards of that time. So they have returned her hairline and lips to the original depiction and then removed the yellowing layers of varnish. I thought it was the nose at first. Apparently, there's no change there. I mean, I can see the hairline one. The lips one, I think, it's almost imperceptible. I can see the hair difference, but I personally think it looks better in the original. But then I am a person with a 5 head myself, so I appreciate a high forehead. I think it's very I mean, I could, if I sort of squint and I can sort of see, but then I sort of thought the hairline was more visible because the face had been like made so much whiter looking because they'd taken off the yellow varnish. So I thought it was a kind of, it's just, it stands out more against the darker background. Anyway, so the collections conservator at English Heritage said, "quote As paintings conservator, I'm always amazed by the vivid and rich colours that reveal themselves when I remove old yellowing varnish from portraits. I mean, the blue of that gown is absolutely stunning, isn't it? Look at that; it like glisters. It's so lovely." While the original reason for overpainting could have been to cover damage from the portrait being rolled, the restorers certainly added their own preferences to, quote, sweeten her face. I hope I've done Diana justice by removing these additions and presenting her natural face to the world. I mean, it's still a portrait, like, that's still supposed to be, made attractive. The newly updated portrait will go next to a portrait of Cecil's husband, Thomas Bruce, 1st Earl of Elgin. Well, if you thought your postal service was bad, these French soldiers are in trouble. So what we have here, and there is a NPR episode on this that is really good. So I recommend checking it out because it's about intimate letters meant for French sailors have finally been opened more than 200 years after they were sent. Historian Renaud Moreau uncovered the letters going through a box at Britain's National Archives. One letter reads, quote, I cannot wait to possess you. Another says, I can assure you that the days last entire months and months count for years. These letters were sent during the 7 Years' War between 1757 and 1758. So 1 year of the 7 Years' War. The letters aren't just scintillating love letters. He says they also give us a peek into the lives of a group of people that we don't know much about and how they wrote and they spoke. Moreau spoke with As It Happens host Neil Koskal about the find, and you can hear part of their conversation has been detailed in the article, but you can also listen to it as well. So check it out. It's more than a little late, isn't it? I do hope nobody abandoned their spouse because they thought they had been forgotten about. Fake Robert Burns manuscripts apparently make millions. Fake Robert Burns manuscripts created in Edinburgh 140 years ago are still being traded to make millions of pounds. Counterfeit documents that were made by a forger in the 1880s are continuing to, quote, fleece collectors. The fraud is the latest scam to be investigated by Professor David Wilson in his programme, Scams and Scandals Counterfeit Art, on BBC Scotland. These manuscripts are still popping up today. So in the 1880s, almost a century after Burns died, the Edinburgh forger Alexander Antique Smith produced hundreds of fake manuscripts. He then sold them to booksellers, pawn shops, and collectors. He did get caught and got 12 months in prison in 1893, but his counterfeits were still out on the open market and are still doing the rounds. We have Professor Gerard Carruthers. I love the surname Carruthers. It sounds like you're in a Poirot film. Professor Gerard Carruthers, who is the co-director for the Centre of Robert Burns Studies at Glasgow, talks about the scam in the programme. He authenticates documents across the world and said that the Scottish counterfeits still cause confusion for experts and collectors. He said he looked for certain clues to identify the fraud, such as the blue tint or roughness of the paper. He said, quote, "I've made 3 trips this year abroad to look at documents that might or might not be genuine." Most recently, he's been in New England, helping a collector who had hoped that his 7-figure investment was genuine burns, but it only turned out to be antique Smith. You would be livid. Livid. In other words, even though Smith is now collectible in his own right, that 7-figure sum has become at best a 4-figure sum. He'd been hustled. He added, quote, "A guy in Texas said to him, 'You've got 3 days to buy this stuff. I've got another man interested.'" Cole. The collector confessed to me, "Even at the time, I thought this doesn't ring true. I'm not sure that there is this other man, but I better grab this. This is an experienced collector of autographs and historic bills. He knows the scams, but he still fell for it." Oh, that sucks. Smith was born in 1859. He'd buy batches of old books and second-hand stores across the capital. And they started to buy up his manuscripts until the scam was uncovered in 1891. Professor Carruthers said the biggest collection, 157 of Smith's fake manuscripts, belongs to the New York Public Library, and it is believed that there may be more than 500 forgeries still in circulation. Yeah. It's the thing is, if someone is really, it makes me super anxious when someone is really kind of putting on the pressure for a sale. Like, they don't want to give you time to think. And sometimes there's a reason for that. But when we were looking to into buying a house or getting a mortgage to buy a house, we did experience places where it was really the hard sell, and we're talking about properties, new build properties. They weren't going to be finished for months and months and months, but telling us that they'd all gone. It was the last building, the last property, la la la. And then you'd call back and they'd be like, "Oh, we do have one more now. Now you come to mention it." And it's just like, when that sell is that hard, it makes me feel very, very uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable. The real life story about mentioning forgeries, the real life story about Mark Hoffman and the car boom boom. I don't know anything about that. I don't know anything about that, but I think Scarlett has. I will look into it because that sounds like a true crime history mashup. Talk about boom booms. Next one's a bit boom boomy. Civil War cannonballs, swords, and unexploded munition discovered in the South Carolina River. That's not what you want. Hundreds of Civil War relics unearthed during a cleanup of the South Carolina River. The artifacts were discovered while crews were removing tar-like material from the Congaree River, and they bring new evidence, tangible evidence, of Union General William T. Sherman's ruthless Southern campaign towards the end of the Civil War. The remains are expected to find a safer home at the South Carolina Confederate Relic Room and Military Museum in the state capital of Columbia. They have found, I don't know if I can say that word, the things that go inside the boom boom stick, cannonballs, and even swords. I mean, what an amazing find. Also discovered was a wheel that experts think belonged to a wagon that went boom during the 2 days of supply dumps. We're told the odds of finding a wagon wheel, it's a little chocolate biscuit, are crazy. They've got smaller wagon wheels. The unexploded munitions got demilitarized at Shaw Air Force Base. And so the remaining artifacts won't be displayed for a couple more years because corroded metal relics must undergo an electrochemical process for their conservation. And they're also going to need to be measured and identified. So we're told that Dominion energy crews have been working to rid the riverbed of toxic tar. They removed an additional 2.5 tons of other debris out of the river. They said they got focused on the coal tar and they took care of that, but they also had this other trash, apparently not trash as it turns out. South Carolina Republican Governor Henry McMaster said this preservation is necessary for current generations to learn from history. It's very important to learn from history. Quote, all those things are lost on us today. They seem just like stories from the past. But when we read about those, when we see artifacts and see things that touch people's hands, it brings us right back to how fortunate we are in this state and in this country to be where we are. I think that hands on history and history where it happened is really, really vital. We're told that relics from the Civil War have been discovered in South Carolina before. Shano. In 2016, Hurricane Matthew unearthed Civil War cannonballs from the sand on Folly Beach. And there was a similar discovery made on the same beach 3 years later after Hurricane Dorian. That is, I mean, surely that that is so, it's so weird. Like, I know that forgery is a crime and it carries a prison sentence, but like planting a boom boom or a number of boom booms is surely a bigger sentence. That's been like, that to me is like, let's turn this larceny into a felony. What? Don't know. No. It's a bad choice. Bad choice. Apparently 19 cannons were found in Georgia in the Savannah River last year. Apparently they thought they came from British ships that were scuttled in the American Revolution. In 2015, the wreckage of a Confederate warship, the CSS Georgia, was raised to the surface of the Savannah River. That was scuttled by its own crew to prevent General Sherman from capturing the gunship when, I shouldn't have said that word, when his Union troops took Savannah in December 1864. Yeah, so if you're ever in Brighton in the UK, it's a lovely part of the world, and May is super fun because they have the Fringe, and the first weekend of August is also super fun because it's Pride. They have some really cool stuff in Brighton. So it's where George the Fourth used to go for his like dirty, naughty weekends, and he built the pavilion, which is just beautiful and also ludicrous in equal measure. The Brighton Pavilion is one of the places, if you're ever on the south coast, go and see it, because it's like the Taj Mahal outside, but it's decorated with this very Georgian chinoiserie on the inside that doesn't really make any sense, but it's kind of like Chinese inspired. It's like the chow mein of interior decoration. It is the prawn cracker of chinoiserie. It is fabulous. But the Brighton Town Hall, beneath it is the old police cells, and so the old prison cells. And I was involved in some plays that were put on down there, and it's a really eerie space because we are talking certainly a Victorian prison, a little jail before people go. So people who've done crimes in Brighton before they can be put before the magistrate or the judge or whatever. And it feels really eerie, really, really creepy. And it connects to some kind of fairly intense crimes, including somebody who stole a carpet and was pinched for it, and was there with the chief officer who turned his back for a second. So the thief picked up a poker from the fireplace and bludgeoned the police officer, which then meant that the police officer didn't survive it. So you don't, like, the punishment for theft is at that time nowhere near the same as the punishment for bludgeoning a police officer to not be alive anymore. Like, they are wildly different punishments, and it just, it's so strange. So strange. What? Well, I take it that wasn't planned. I take it that was a boo-boo. Metal detectorists once again. Polish metal detectorists have unearthed a trove of rare American and Russian gold coins thought to have been hidden during World War II. They were found in a decaying canister. Lukasz Isteleski and two like-minded friends apparently patrol the woods with metal detectors. They on the hunt for buried treasure or relics from World War II. Well, they have been lucky, and this time they found more than they bargained for. He was on his own searching, and then he heard his two friends screaming, raced over to find them crowded around a small hole. I've got to say, if I was in the woods digging stuff up and my mate started screaming, I probably wouldn't look in the hole. I'm not going to lie. But less the foot below the earth was a severely decayed metal can. When they lifted it, the canister deteriorated and gave way to a waterfall of gleaming gold coins. Amazing. It was largely American currency mixed with some Russian coins. Close up of one of the $20 coins, that's an amazing amount, show it to have been from 1903. According to the US Mint, coins in those denominations were manufactured between 1795 and 1933. The American Gold Exchange reported that coins produced prior to 33 are exceedingly rare nowadays, as most were melted down in the federal gold recall of the 1930s. They don't know how this treasure ended up being in the woods, considering that this location is near to the German border. But it's thought that it might have been put there for safety sometime during World War II. The coins are now in the possession of the town's government, who hope to discern more about their origins. Something else that's been putting social media ablaze is this gentleman. Napoleon Bonaparte's hat has sold for 1.9 million euros at a Paris auction. That's a lot of money for a hat. It's gone to a private collector who has not made themselves known. Do you reckon they're going to wear it? Probably, because they can, because there's nobody stopping them. We're told that the hat was part of his brand. Wearing it sideways made him recognisable in battle. It's thought that only 20 of these hats remain, many in private collections. The hat was being sold alongside other Napoleonic memorabilia assembled by an industrialist who died last year. The auctioneers said that for specialists, the hat is the Holy Grail. Apparently, the emperor wore his hat with the corns parallel to his shoulders, known as ombertai, while most of his officers wore their hats perpendicular to the shoulders. The auctioneer said, quote, "People recognise this hat everywhere. When they saw it on the battlefield, they knew Napoleon was there," which feels like another bad choice because they want to pick you off. When in private, he always had his hat had it on his head, or he had it in his hand, and sometimes he threw it on the ground. That was the image, the symbol of the emperor. The auctioneer said that this hat comes with impeccable provenance, that it remained throughout the 19th century in the family of Napoleon's palace quartermaster. The hat being auctioned by Osnat Auction House in Fontainebleau has a cockade that Napoleon fixed to his hat in 1815 during the crossing of the Mediterranean from his exile in Elba, where he led a brief return to power. Other items being sold include a silver plate looted from Napoleon's carriage after his 1815 defeat at Waterloo, and a wooden vanity case he owned with razors, a silver toothbrush, scissors, and other belongings. So this hat it's black beaver felt. It had been valued at being worth between 600,000 to 800,000 euros, but as it says, it went for 1.9 million in this auction. Because there is no control over that. Because capitalism. Yeah, that's why. Because capitalism. Um, I don't. I can ask my husband what the French view of Napoleon is, because obviously he was educated in France. I'm not sure if he's listening. He may be chilling out after the the dangers of bedtime. But the kind of British view is that, or certainly was, that it was, naughty Napoleon, big the big threat, that the victory over him was this kind of shining achievement for the nation that we could all be proud of, that they, the heroes of Waterloo, that kind of real rabble rousing, and codified in the artwork of the period. The Prince Regent, later George IV, dined out on the victories. He was seemingly semi-obsessed with Napoleon, and he wanted loads of the stuff. He wanted either copies or the exact things of Napoleon. Like, he was very keen to put himself in opposition. So I suppose that's kind of how it's presented. And the victories of the Napoleonic Wars are something that there are people that still very much dine out of them. Dine out of them. Meanwhile, we have, of course, the new, which I haven't seen again because I have been on holiday, and to be honest, I probably won't. I certainly won't pay to see it in the cinema. I have talked about historical fiction extensively. I think historical fiction is an incredible thing. I think that film, TV shows, even in the space where there are loads of inaccuracies, I think there is so much value in historical fiction. I think the people who put the work into it should be applauded. I find historical inaccuracy, when we do know different, to be frustrating, particularly because, from my point of view, 9 times out of 10, the truth is stranger than the fiction. But what has really wound me up, and it probably was the intent, is the comments that Ridley Scott has made about people who care about historical accuracy. The demeaning and degrading response, saying that he doesn't really care about historical accuracy, that that historians have said, who have said that the film isn't accurate. What should he say? He said, "You want me to answer that? It will have a bleep in it." And to talk about when the French have complained about it, his response is, "The French don't even like themselves. The audience I showed it to in Paris, they loved it." I feel that it's incredibly dismissive, and I also think that we have had this conversation, and it's been cute and cool to say that we don't want to hear from experts anymore about a variety of issues. And what that in turn has allowed to happen is some of the worst portions of our society, some of the worst individuals who are seeking to govern us, have been allowed to run roughshod because they have been able to say things. And whenever they have been fact checked about those things in a variety of ways, from a variety of people, from who have spent their lives researching things, to be dismissed with, "We don't want, we're fed up of hearing from experts." This kind of anti-intellectualism I find deeply concerning. And of course I would. But to dismiss this, I think it's not only is it rude and disrespectful to what I've spent my life doing, because if he'd actually spoken to my knowledge, the person who's being classified as the history expert on this does not have a qualification in history. And if he had spoken to the numerous available people who have done research in this, most of us understand that there will be poetic license taken. We understand that it's a film. We understand that it's not a history text. But apparently they have him doing target practice at the pyramids or the Sphinx in Egypt, which just feeds into this monotonous lie that gets put around. And I think that and I totally get there is going to be a space where the fiction has to take effect. Um, but there are certain things that don't need to happen. Some of the choices that were made don't need to happen. However, my lovely friend Estelle, who is a French scholar, and she's just about to have a baby, she is on here as L History. She made a video talking about this film, and she is far more knowledgeable on the topic than I am. And she's also a fabulous author as well. She's got some great books already out and some new books coming out that look super, super fascinating. So if you want to know about Napoleon from a French point of view, then go and check out Estelle's video on it and her channel. In fact, L History. She is wonderful, and I like her very much. We are approaching the ding dongs. We have our last piece of new news. I see. I don't think so either. I think that to my point of view is, you take something like Hilary Mantel, and where the fiction steps in is in her interpretation. It's very clear that Hilary Mantel had a desire to rehabilitate the role of an image of Cromwell, and frankly, wonderfully successfully. I don't think that before Wolf Hall, somebody of the sympathetic character of Mark Rylance, who is, to my mind, one of the finest and most joyful actors to watch of his generation. It is a privilege to watch that man work. I don't think he would have been cast as Thomas Cromwell in anything other than Wolf Hall, put it that way. But the skeleton upon which she builds her world, her fabulous world, she's sorely missed, is rigorous historical research and a presentation of the events so far as we know them. Where the fiction comes in is to add the colour, is to add the life. It's in the dialogue, it's in the snatched bits that you hear at the kind of corners of the room. And that's one of the reasons why I like Wolf Hall, the first book, the best, because that kind of very odd, unusual writing style where you're never quite sure who's speaking just felt so evocative of the Tudor court for me. And I get why, as it became super popular, there was a need and a request to, I don't want to say dumb down, but to remove that element so that you're very clear on who's speaking when. But that's something I absolutely loved about the first book. But yeah, for me, that's how historical fiction should be done. That being said, there are some things that go so far off piste. I am talking about Rain, which is just, it's not history, but is it wonderful? Yeah. Is it wonderful? Yes, it's wonderful. Are the costumes ropey? They certainly are. Is the narrative and storyline, it the historical line is here. There are some characters called Mary Queen of Scots, and that's where the history ends. That's where it connects and ends. But does it have a place? Yeah, because I tell you what, if one 14-year-old comes across Rain and thinks this is really cool, and Mary Queen of Scots is the heroine for my time, that will push a number of them to go and research Mary Queen of Scots? Will they be shocked by what they find? Quite possibly. But will they have done the research? Yeah. Yeah. So I am not in any way saying that these shows shouldn't be made. And I don't even necessarily think that the film Napoleon has to be historically accurate. But Ridley Scott doesn't get to come on and make it seem like people who do care about historical accuracy need to shut up, grow up, get a life. That's not okay. That's not okay. Because who does he think are the kind of people that want to go and watch the film Napoleon? Who does he think the market share is? Sorry, I'm going to just step down from my rage. I heard about this. Yes, I've seen this. I want to check that out. I want to check it out. The stuff that I've seen of the Serpent Queen looks fabulous as well. In the same way, the Great deviates from history, but it's fabulous. The Favourite deviated from history, but it still managed to evoke a sense of the period. There are ways of doing historical fiction that respects your audience. And when you are making a film like Napoleon, the people that are going to want to watch that are nerds, babe. Like us. The nerds want to go and see it. So don't talk to us like we're losers, because that was our childhood. That was our childhood. We've already done that. We don't want to be bullied by the people making the films we want to watch. That's not cool. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm going through a kind of repressed childhood trauma of like caring too much about history and being picked on for it. That then you have somebody who's making a film about something you care about and that you like, saying that you're a loser who needs to grow up and get a life because you care. Well, I've just spent the better part of 20 quid coming to see this film, so thanks a lot, babe. Anyway, 100 years overdue, a book has been finally returned to the St. Paul Public Library. I do wonder why they bothered. Famous composers. Never heard of it. Might have to check it out. Obviously, it's a very good read. This is the 1902 edition. Was checked out of the St. Paul Public Library in 1919, and it has just been returned this week. A Hennepin County resident found the book while sorting through their mother's belongings. Yes, blame your mother. Wicked. Library officials confirmed it was indeed their book. There were two stamps on the back page, one reading 1914, the other reading 1916, meaning the book was entered into the library's catalogue twice. It was there when it was, first of all, when the library was in Market Hall, and then that burnt down in 1915. So then it was likely added back to the collection in 1916 before the 1917 opening of the Central Library. It was last checked out in 1919. Wow. The digital library coordinator said that in his 25 years of working for the library, this was the oldest book he'd ever seen returned. There's been a time or two where something's come back that's been checked out for 20 or 30 years, but nothing where it looks like it's been out for 100 years. That is a long, that's a long loan. I'm just wondering what the plan is here. St. Paul Library System did away with late fees in 2019. At the time, it had $2.5 million in uncollected debts that, when eliminated, unblocked 42,000 library cards. Wow. During the time period that the book was checked out, Larson believes a late fee would have been a penny a day. So according to his math, that amounts to a $36,000 fine. That is expensive. They don't know what's going to happen to the book. It probably isn't going to go back into circulation because it's in quite delicate condition. It's been in the bag in a wardrobe for 100 years, so fair enough. It's now not just an old book, it is an artifact that now, of course, has a little bit of history attached to it. And anybody who has got overdue books from 5, 10, or 20 years, Larson encourages Minnesotans to bring them back. All is forgiven. If they will forgive $36,000 worth of fines, you're probably fine, babe, to take your book back. So we are hopping on to, let me get a little bell out. Little piddling boy. Little bit of a ding dong. Let's go. A 2,600-year-old clay pot has been repurposed as a trash bin in an Iranian museum. That's not what you want. Sorry. This is a Medes pot that's now serving as a trash bin in northern Iran. The Archaeological Museum has come under fire after the Etimad newspaper reported that this clay pot was being used as a trash bin. A curator has tried to justify the negligence by saying that plastic or wooden trash bins would have been stolen from the museum. I'm just going to repeat that. A curator has tried to justify the negligence by saying that plastic or wooden trash bins would have been stolen from the museum. So the response is, we don't want our bins getting stolen, so let's make our artifact into a bin. I'm sorry. What? That's not... No, don't think so. So this development, we're told, unfolds amid the backdrop of extensive collections of ancient Persian artifacts that were excavated by foreign archaeologists before the 20th century. So there are lots of things that have been looted. And particularly since the 1979 Islamic Revolution, the emphasis on Islamic culture has often resulted in a more conservative attitude towards pre-Islamic relics. So the current Iranian regime, we're told, is hesitant to fully embrace its profound historical legacy. So they are literally trashing it. I don't know what to... it's a no. It's an... I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. Thanks, Kathy. I try, and I'm glad that you enjoy my sense of humour. I think I'm funny too, occasionally. We do have one more ding dong. This is not someone being a ding dong. This is apparently a physical ding dong. We've got a magical Roman phallus windchime. I'm not sure if the phallus is magical or the windchime is magical. Maybe both. A magical Roman phallus windchime has been unearthed in Serbia. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm looking at this image, and this was found about 100 clicks east of Belgrade. And this is a tintinnabulum, which was hung near the doorways of houses and shops, believed to serve as magical protection for the premises. This one was discovered on the porch of a large home on the main street. This building was destroyed by fire, so clearly the magical protection wasn't working against flames. The porch collapsed and fell to the ground, so this was not doing its job. The object is cast from bronze and depicts a magical phallus at the centre with 2 legs, wings, and a tail. Now, I have looked at this like it's a magic eye from the 90s, and I don't know what's what. I'll be honest with you. I can see chains. I can see what looks like a bell. I can't necessarily see a bell end. So I don't know what's happening there. This central figure is adorned with 4 bells. We will see the original appearance of this wind chime once the conservation has taken place. We know that these are hung in front of doors or houses so that when they make a sound in the wind, they dispel evil forces and evil eyes. Phallus shapes are found on a wide range of Roman objects. We know they're in amulets, frescoes, mosaics, lamps, and even on Hadrian's Wall. These objects do not have an erotic character. They are funny, though. This part of the human body was considered an effective weapon against the fire against the evil eye. Well, I mean, if you will get be a nasty shock, poked in the evil eye by a magical phallus. Can you imagine? Apparently, it's also a bringer of good luck. So when this is so many words that I could use, none of them are appropriate. When it's back in its original state, the windchime, we will see what it looks like. I can't. I'm looking at that thing and I don't know what's happening anywhere. There's some frilly bits that are very confusing to me. So we are now moving on to events and exhibitions. As always, if I have been able to find the accessibility information that is listed both on the opera pin board, but also in the description box. So if you do have accessibility needs, there will be a link to the page that you need to go to find out more. We have at the Met a exhibition called Africa and Byzantium. That says art history has long been emphasized the glories of the Byzantine Empire, but less is known about the profound artistic contributions of North Africa, Egypt, Nubia, Ethiopia, and other powerful African kingdoms who interacted with Byzantium and then had a lasting impact on the Mediterranean world. So this exhibition brings together masterworks, mosaic, sculpture, pottery, metalwork, luxury objects, paintings, religious manuscripts. And this is what's going to be on show in this exhibition. It's going to be open until March the 3rd, 2024. If you do get a chance to go and see it, do let us know what you think. It sounds absolutely fabulous. If you are going to be in Rome and near to the Vatican, unfortunately, I did check, and if you have mobility issues, the necropolis is not wheelchair accessible, and I think it's quite difficult to access if you do have accessibility needs. So just something to flag up there. But however, the necropolis is open. They are doing tours under the city. And on these tours, which are paid for and timed, you get to go to the burial grounds underneath Vatican City. It does sound like an incredible experience. It does sound like it might be quite heavy on your feet. You're underground. There's probably some stairs that aren't very stable, but what an amazing experience. If you do get a chance to go and see it, do let me know what you think. Let us all know. This one up, I've got sent this book. It looks super fun, and I know I'm going to do my book shelf tour. I haven't got this one. I've only just seen it. This looks like it could be a fun little history gift for Christmas. It's called Weird Medieval Guys: How to Live, Laugh, Love, and Die in Dark Times. This is, you know, the when you go on to the social media apps, the artist formerly known as Twitter, and you see somebody who's got they're essentially making memes out of medieval illuminations. This is about that, and I think it looks really fun. I think it might be the sort of thing that your friendly history buff might enjoy for Christmas, or perhaps somebody who just likes funny jokes. Maybe it's a way to get somebody who likes potty humor into history. It could be the gateway drug. Naomi, thank you for making it. We are getting close to wrapping up. It's lovely to see you, and thank you for coming in from Australia. And Annie, you don't need to apologise. I know you're not shouting at me. Whenever you come in, I read your comments. I know that I remember that you need to use the caps lock. I know you weren't shouting at me or any of us. You don't need to apologise. Don't worry about it. You do what you need to do to make you comfortable. I don't know if this is pronounced the Pika Museum or the PICA Museum. It is in Perth, Australia, and they have an exhibition called The Purple Shall Govern. This is regarding the Purple Rain protest, and this is Roberta Joy Rich's first solo exhibition called Purple Shall Govern. She is juxtaposing the harsh histories of segregation in the settler nation South Africa and Australia. She's interrogating who has access to public space then and now. It sounds really like a fascinating exhibition. This is going to be open until the 31st of December 2023. So it will be running until the very end of the year. And this exhibition is free and it's open from 10 till 5 p.m. at the PICA exhibition site in Perth, Australia. Thank you, Adrienne. That's lovely of you. And also, everyone does need a phallus windchime. I wonder what my neighbours would think if I. To be honest, the neighbours that know me would be like, "That's about right. They're the weird family." Where are we? I think, and then last but by no means least, and I had to double check this that it was actually accessible for people who weren't at this school. So this is in Miami, Florida. This is a school called Belen Jesuit Preparatory School. They have got their own art gallery. I'm guessing that's a rich private school, presumably. But they are hosting an exhibition called Faith, Beauty and Devotion, Medieval, Renaissance and Baroque Paintings that is going on until the 16th of December 2023. So just a couple of weeks left now. This is, we're told, the largest exhibition of art from the medieval, Renaissance and Baroque period to be assembled in Miami from a private art collection. It's heading to South Florida this fall. This collection is from Italy and it's arriving in America for the first time. And the list of paintings they have on offer, Rubens, Caravaggio, you know, the heavy hitters of big old names. And if you are near to this school, you can access it. I went on and had a look at booking reservation. You can book a reservation to go and see it. What an incredible thing. And for those students, what an incredible opportunity they get to go and see that. Absolutely fabulous. If I figure out how to make a ding dong wind chime, trust and believe it's going to happen. I think next we're going to do she-wolf, something she-wolf. I'm feeling invigorated by she-wolves, but if I can figure out how to do a wind chime of phalluses, I'll do it. I'll do it. This is the Belen Jesuit Preparatory School. I will get a the exhibition, and they also didn't have any information about accessibility, so I don't know. So it's in 500 Southwest 127th Avenue, Miami, Florida, if that makes any sense to people. So it's in Miami, Florida. I'm aware that's quite a big place. So please, yeah, it's linked though. So it's linked directly to this school, and on there you can just click on the book your reservation. I do have merch. I have merch on my website. You can get stickers. They're somewhere here. I've got t-shirts of Queen Victoria saying Goth AF. We've got ritual purposes mugs and wine tumblers. And soon, very soon, we're going to have some she-wolf stuff. I'm not sure if I'm going to go t-shirt or what. Maybe t-shirt and cup. I don't know. But yes, I do have merch. And my website it's on my website, www.katrinamarchant.com. I'm building it still. I'm having a lovely time building it, and hopefully I'll have some more cool stuff to add on there at some point soon. Yes. Okay, yeah, I was thinking t-shirt made sense. I was thinking it with also the dictionary definition of what a she-wolf is. I think that'd be pretty cool. But I need to avoid it looking like I'm doing the Stark Westeros Sea wolf. I need to make it a wolf that doesn't look like it's a dire wolf the North remembers. Do you know what I mean? So let's bring you down. Lovely. Thank you. That's what I have for you today, friends. I have had a great time. We've been on for nearly 3 hours. I genuinely can't believe my kid's asleep. My husband is a wonderful man. It turns out it's a special birthday treat for him. So I am looking. I could call my wind chimes ding dongs. I'll have to check that out. I don't know how to get a wind chime made, but I will investigate. I think it's time. Why not? Thank you all so much. If you have watched along and joined in the chat, I really appreciate it. Thank you for wishing my husband a happy birthday. He will love that. And I am looking forward to chatting with you all in the live for the premiere on Friday. And also we will have our next History News Live in December. Do, as I said, keep an eye out on YouTube, particularly on the community tab is the word I'm looking for, because I will be putting up a post asking for questions for the Q&A that I want to do in December. So that's what I think I have for you. I do hope that you're going to have a wonderful week, that wherever you are on your Sunday, we are approaching the end of Sunday for me. I hope that you're going to have a lovely rest of your Sunday, or indeed start of your Sunday, and certainly a wonderful week. And we will chat on Friday. And I'm looking forward to seeing lots of you in the live chat who can make it for that premiere. But until then, I hope that you will all take care of yourselves. And bye-bye for now.